Hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. What's up? Happy Friday, everybody. I'm heading off to my final respite break before training camp next week. So last time we speak until the week it all begins, Callow.
Your final reset, as I guess you
Yeah.
would probably call it, right? Yeah.
My final reset. Yeah. I'm actually bored and I've been ready. I've been ready for a while, but I'll take one more week because I'll miss it when we get to like November and I haven't had a day off for like 4 months straight. I'll be ready for it then. But I've been ready for this thing to start for a few weeks now. So I'm excited that it's getting going. And one more week where I got kind of nothing to do. I'm going to go do some guy stuff for a couple days and just kind of clear my head and get ready for the whole thing.
I was gonna say, I think it only finally hit me really like the tail end of this week that the summer is here. Like, obviously, the All-Star break is coming. That's when we all kind of hit the reset button. But it's been funny. Like, this offseason, been kind of sneaky good with news. Like, we haven't really had to like pry for topics too many days. And then, the Nationals gave us a gift this week. So, all in all, I like to look
Yes.
at the big picture. And I feel like it hasn't been as much of a grind as I thought it was going to be this
Yeah.
offseason.
No, I just like, for me, it's like, I know what's about to happen and I'm very excited for it, but it's taxing. So I'm ready for it though. And I'm excited for the year. I got all juiced up. I'll talk about it in a little bit. I watched the quarterback series and, Jaden and the Commanders are prominently displayed throughout it because they beat the Bengals, they beat the Falcons, and of course they ended the Lions season. And those are the three quarterbacks that were profiled. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. So I was kind of getting all juiced up watching that and listen to some highlights and get ready for the season. And, a reminder of how special last year was. So I'm excited to get it going again. But before we go,
I did want to say this before
yeah.
you jump into this. It's exactly 4 weeks today is the first preseason game from today. So you have 4 weeks from today from the Patriots game. I just wanted to point that out. Yeah, it's 4 weeks.
Right. July 11th. Right. 4 weeks away. We'll have a joint practice before that. So that'll be, which in all likelihood will be more interesting than the game itself. But
right.
We're ready to go. Like, it takes about a week to get into camp too, because you're still not allowed to hit. There's a lot of rules about what you can and cannot do. And then it's really, I'm pointing to that first joint practice with New England, where I think we're going to start, the rubber meets the road there. And we'll get to the first preseason game. Then it's kind of off to the races. All right. Let's do the last Terry update before I check out for a week, which comes from two different sources. One is just the agent Joel Corey, who writes for CBS, who did a long kind of piece about where he thinks this will all land, what the complications are, what the holdups may be. Of course, with the caveat of, I need to keep saying this, I don't know what he wants. Like, I haven't not heard exactly length and money, what he exactly wants. But I'll get to that one in a minute. The other one was James Palmer, longtime reporter, who was on some show somewhere. And his bit of news was Dan Quinn has been in contact with him throughout the entire offseason. So it's not like there's this acrimonious thing going on. It's just really more about getting a deal done that makes everybody happy, or probably in the case of the Commanders, a little bit unhappy with whatever length they're going to have to go, or make Terry unhappy, which is, I don't think what the outcome is going to be. I think they're going to do something here. I don't know what, but I think they're going to do something here. And then his other line was, and this is where Joel Corey was about right on what he said. James Palmer said something to the effect of, he's looking at the 7 receivers who have the number 30 attached to their name, which is annual average value of whatever the deal is. And that's what he's eyeing. And that number, while I don't think would be prohibitive, to me only is if he wants something that's more than a couple of years beyond this season. And I'm guessing here because they're not talking about it, the team, and he hasn't said publicly what he wants, but we're narrowing this all down. Like, him saying Quinn's talking to him, I'm not surprised. Like, that's kind of how Quinn is. I'm also not surprised that Terry's not demanding trades or anything like that. I think he wants to be here. They want him here. I think there's probably just a difference of opinion, probably more than money, than length of time of what they're willing to give to a player who is going to turn 30 this year. And if the number is 30, okay, but if it's on a very short deal, okay. But if he wants something that's in the neighborhood of 30 million a year over a 4 or 5 year extension, I think they're going to have massive stumbling blocks. And this is where I think it could carry over into the preseason. And I hope it doesn't. because, he's a big part of their offense. That's his leverage point more than anything. And I do hope they get something settled sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I thought the report that Dan Quinn and him have been in contact in the offseason was fine, report it. But they also said they were talking to Marshawn Lattimore when he wasn't at voluntary workouts either, right? Joe Witt Jr.
Right, but he wasn't holding out. He wasn't asking for anything. So that's different. Terry's asking for something here.
Sure, but even Joe Witt Jr. was we've been talking to him, but we don't know what he's going to look like when he gets here. He wasn't that clean about it. He was, he basically said we don't know what to expect. So I'm not surprised that a guy of Terry's stature has been in contact, with Quinn. And, that's a guy I'm not worried about anyways, right? I think we've all said that.
Yeah,
Terry could show up late and I think he'd be fine.
I guess it's one of those things where it's we are all systems go right now. And I don't need any hiccups the number one receiver on the team doesn't show up for a month. I don't know. Will it in the end be that big of a deal? Probably not if he's there and happy and everybody gets back on the same page. And I believe he'll be in incredible shape because he always is. And it's not like he hasn't been here working with the offense anyway. But I still, knowing what this year means, knowing what they think they have in front of them, him not being there's a big deal to me. So I hope they get it done sooner rather than later.
I will say this too, when it comes to this contract is I think we all have started to bark up every tree that's available. And we started to do it 2 weeks ago, really, when you started running through the salaries of some of these guys ahead of them. Yeah. And I think the phrase that was used was he's not looking to reset the market, which is I'm not surprised at that report either, if it ends up being true either. We know he's not Jamar Chase. We know him asking for $40 million is a little ridiculous. I think Terry's a smart guy too. He knows he really can't ask for that. He's not that type of receiver, and he's not that young either, really. The age matters there too. But I think we were barking up the right tree of saying, what's that number? I think the number is at least 30 and change. And maybe the Commanders at this point are just trying to see how they can kind of squeeze that gap. Because I also talked about this in my show earlier this week was don't kind of forget how some of these deals get done. Remember 2 years ago? Is it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? Remember John Allen wanted his new deal? And it didn't come until the first day of training camp, which the first day of training camp is conditioning, right? So it didn't really matter. But that deal got done literally when they were all just in the same room. So I wouldn't rule that out either, that, maybe they are kind of close and they knock out the details once everyone's in the same room together as well.
Yeah, I agree. All right. I want to get to Joel Corey's take on it, which he went through a great detail of it. A lot of it was stuff that, he says it better than I do as a former agent, but that I went through that you just referenced where these are the numbers of what the players are making. Chase is making annual average value $40 million a year. And I know people point that out, but he's the only one making that. And it's by far ahead of the other group. So he reset the market in a big way. Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb are around 34, 35. So that's the difference. There's a pretty big difference between Chase and everybody else. Then it drops down to the $30 to $32 million range per year. And those names include recently Brandon Ayuk, DK Metcalf, which are the two that Joel Corey brings up as if I were his agent, those are the two that I would be bringing up to the Commanders going, this is the market value for me. And that would be a fair number to do. And I got to be honest with you, I think that's a fair argument. For Terry's side, I think it's a fair argument. I've been saying all along, if he's asking for something what Justin Jefferson or even more so Jamar Chase got, I think we're going to have a problem because I don't think that the Commanders are going to be willing to go anywhere near a number like that. And again, I want to say, I don't know what he's asking for. And considering how, the reporting is very careful with the wording that is used, that nobody's really pissed at anybody yet. They're just, I'm unhappy or I'm frustrated or I'd like to see this or that happen. There's no lines in the sand of what he's asking for is just not going to happen. And unless he changes his tune. So I believe that he's not asking for that stuff. But Corey said this, and I agree with that part. If he's using DK and Brandon Ayuk in one specific facet of their deals, the number that they make per year, it's going to be hard for the Commanders to argue to not give him something in exactly that range. And that is about $30 million per year.
Yeah, and I think that's about right. And I think we've also kind of had this discussion of how good has this guy been? It's almost like we don't really even know how good he's been because of all the quarterbacks that he's played with. And they handed him his first franchise quarterback last year, and we saw what happened. He had the best year of his career, too. So I'm sure he and his agent are also going, another year with this guy, he should get better. The argument's going to be there that he gets a reasonable number. Once again, I also think if this is McLaurin's camp, they're playing this right. They're saying, we don't want to hit the reset button. Like, this is a little bit kind of like how Hendrickson has handled it in Cincinnati, right? He's going, I don't want to get Myles Garrett money, but I know what I'm getting paid right now isn't the number that I should be getting paid. And Terry's not that, because Terry does have a legitimate number this year. It's just kind of, I think really what the hang up here is going to be the years. Like, I think that's where I think we all really don't know what's going to happen here, because look, I think the organization could get sentimental over Terry. I know Adam Peters isn't. I just know that guy makes right decision after right decision. And I know he's going to want to, probably keep this shorter than longer.
This is the uncomfortable part of this conversation, because I love Terry and I want him to play out if not his entire career, the bulk of the important part of it. And I want it to happen here because I think he's a Ring of Fame, player for us. And I want to see him hoist the Super Bowl trophy. He deserves it as much as anybody who's ever put on this uniform, especially in the last generation of players. Like, I want this all to happen for him, and I love him. I started talking about this last year, that when Jaden came in, I said there's an uncomfortable truth about the age difference between the two of them, that one is going to be in his low to mid 20s and the other one's going to be on the other side of 30. He's the number one receiver right now, but for the long term, I don't know, if that's viable for him to be the long-term number one receiver. And I think that's why years are important here. He needs to be here this year. There's part of me that goes, if they could just figure out how to just finagle the contract this year to make him happy enough. The reality is he could get franchised next year, and that number is the number that he's looking for, because it would be a top 5 number. And if he has big numbers off of this year, I don't know why he wouldn't, because he's going to be targeted as a number one receiver in this offense. He could reasonably believe that he's going to get into that position where he could be the franchise player, which worst case scenario, he ends up using that to leverage his way out. Best case scenario is, he plays for another year or two here as he heads into his 30s. But the uncomfortable reality of it is their ages don't exactly match up. And to be honest, what needs to happen, I think, is if you're going to make him happy, we need him this year. We want him to stay here for what I would describe as the bulk of his career. The years are the problem. Where you start to get into a different mindset about what the cap's going to look like is 3 years from now. Assuming everything goes well with Jaden, that's when he's going to get paid like a franchise quarterback. And at that point, you cannot have a 33-year-old receiver making $33 million a year. And, if you extrapolate that out further, if you're thinking about the planning long-term for the team and you're assuming Jaden is who he's going to be for a long time, the reality is with Debo on a 1-year deal, show me deal, Terry on the other side of 30, and I'm hoping he's going to be here for at least a couple more years. The reality is they have to get a young number one receiver again. There's no way around that part of it, that's going to have to happen and maybe addressed in the offseason next year, whether it's via the draft, where they have to get somebody younger who, feels the part of what could be a number one receiver that times up with Jaden and doesn't have to be paid, for a few years. So I think the hang up really here is not money, it's years. How long are they willing to give to him? I could hear his people saying, he ain't your average 30-year-old. Look at how he plays. Look at the condition he's in. Look at the numbers he puts up. And I agree with that. But Peters and the rest of the Commanders, they can't be fooled into the sentimental signing of, well, he'll be fine when he's 33. It's a reality for skill position players that there should be descending assets at some point. I haven't seen it happen yet. But they have to be careful about this. And secondarily, and almost more importantly, this thing can't creep into the point where Jaden's extension would happen as long as Jaden remains in the same spot. So this is why I think this is really tricky. They need to make him happy over the next 2 years. And then we'll just have to see what happens beyond that. And maybe that could be a sticking point here where they go, let's nudge your contract this year. you're going to get franchised at worst next year. And then we'll see after that. And I can see where his people go, no, this is our last payday. We want it to be with you. We want this number for this many years. And they're going to haggle over that for however long they're going to haggle over it until they both realize Terry wants to be here. They want him here. And he just shows up.
I think the number one wide receiver argument's a double-edged sword too, because I bet you they're looking at it as we're going to have to get another number one here at some point. And
Yes.
Terry's camp is going, well, do you want him here to be at least be here or not too? Because that's a part of the argument too. They're going, do you see who's under contract for wide receivers next year? Because if you don't re-sign us, you're going to franchise tag me and Debo's up as well. Like there's that argument from their side too of like, don't you want to lock up one of us? Like, I think there's an argument to be had there as well. It's just a matter of what's on the other side of it.
Yeah. This is so tricky because of his age. It really is nothing else. If he was 26, 27 years old, like some of the other people that got these contracts, I think they would have no choice but to give him, and happily would do it, give him, the same deal that Ayuk got or the same deal that DK got. It's that number and that age that is really a sticking point here, in my opinion. I think and again, they're not talking about it, the team. So like, I don't know exactly what their position is. I'm surmising it's age more than anything. I don't think it's the money. They have the cap room to deal with it this year and next year and swallow it. And he is, in my opinion, their number one receiver for the next couple of years. And then we'll see where they are. But the reality is they're going to have to get younger at the position, find somebody to be a new quote unquote number one within the next 4 years when they have to extend Jaden. And like, that's just reality of what's going on here. And so this is why this one is a little bit tricky. I also don't want to piss this guy off. Like he has been one of the best representatives of this organization I can remember. So I love him too. I'm going to love him forever. I want this to work out. I want him to play the bulk of his career, if not all of it here. I want him to go in the Ring of Fame. I want him to hoist a Super Bowl trophy. Like I want all those things for him. And that's why I hope this all works out. But I do see, and this is why Peters is a tough deal for him, because he knows all of this too. It's not like he doesn't want him here. It's not like that everybody doesn't want him here. It's the first publicly pressured thing that he's hearing about, I think, from the fan base, and all of it is valid. And I know he's taking it all into account. He's got a very tough job to do here. And he has not given term to anybody yet, with the exception of Cosme. And in this case, while as a person, a player, a representative of the organization, I'll hear out why the case should be made to get it. And Peters is just looking at that number 30 and going and seeing Jaden's contract will be up in a few years and go, I can't time up a deal where I have a 33-year-old receiver making $30 million a year and then have to pay the quarterback. It just can't happen. And he may say that or not say that, but that's the tricky part of this whole thing to me.
I think there's one thing that I don't think is talked about enough as well with all of this and with the number. And I think I mentioned this to you, over the course of the last month since we've talked about this is there some way to make him happy that Josh Harris gives him some money up front, right? Like we've talked about this. That's how the Eagles roster, stays together is Lurie has no problem, fronting the money on these front loaded deals where they get signing bonuses. And if I'm Josh Harris, I'm almost saying, is there a way for me to mitigate this a little bit? Because if you front load it for this year and next year, something like that maybe it makes it easier to swallow down the line. And you don't do that for every player. I'm not saying you got to make a habit of this, but this is a special player. He means a little bit more to you than the normal player. Like, I don't know. I look at that argument too of maybe there is a way to sweeten this up in the first couple years. And you go to Terry and say, we're going to do this for you. But when your number goes down to, 29 million in 3 years or something, just remember what we did here. Like I thought there might be an argument to do something like that as well here.
Yeah. I will. That's a different conversation. So that conversation is about, do you think you have a team that is ready and sustainable for runs for the next few years? And that's an honest conversation that I don't know you could have with them. I mean, internally they have to have, externally they'd never have with us. But I'll have it with you just for a minute, okay? I believe they're in a window here off of what they did last year with a rookie quarterback who is this special, and you have his number down, unbelievably manageable for the next few years. You have this opportunity to kind of build up and do something like that. The Eagles, to me, are in a different place than where they are. They are very set at a number of different positions, and they have to make this choice of what you're talking about. Do you want to, as the NBA terminology would put it, go into the second apron to make this happen and keep people here to keep this all together? Or are you going to be one of those teams that makes the tough choices? And they're not making the tough choices. They're making it work out with everybody because the ownership is willing to do very creative things with their cap, throwing money around. It's almost Lerner-esque, like we're going to get to some of this later and it's going to hurt us at a later date. Like when their run ends, there's going to be a price to pay for them, but they're willing to do this. To do this for the Commanders would be selling that we are in the same place as the Eagles, and we just need to do this to maintain our status as a contender. And as I look at their roster, we're in a middle ground that's really unusual. They think they can win, and I agree with them, especially with the quarterback, that they can. Veteran-laden team. They're deeper. I know I'm going to get to Seth Walder's piece in a second here where he graded them as a C for the offseason. I'll get to that in a second. I think it was better than that. I think their roster is better than this. I think their offense could be better than it was a year ago. I think they're going to be a better passing team this year than they were a year, assuming Terry's there, obviously. I think they're going to be better. And I think the window is there. But I think if we're honest about where the roster is, I think we're still in a churn cycle until we get to the point where the Eagles are. The Eagles have a very set roster, not everywhere, but very set roster, which affords them the opportunity to really look at things and go, okay, do we want to do the Lurie special and spread it out and give somebody this money and do that? As we look at our roster, I think you can go up and down all of it and still go, I don't know if he's going to be here next year, this show and this one. I think we have another year of, we're going to have another draft. They're going to have another offseason. They're going to make decisions about people like Lattimore and Tunsil, whether they're long-term players, Debo too, another one, whether he's a long-term player. And then at that point, hopefully they'll have a basis of a team that feels like it's a contender every year. I think they could contend this year. I also know the roster is going to be very different again next year, not unlike the last 2 years. So I think they're in a different space than the Eagles. The Commanders are in a very weird middle ground. So to go that route of saying, okay, give us the money up front. Let's make him happy. We'll spread it out. We'll do the creative cap stuff with him just to make him happy. I don't know. I don't know if we're there yet. And also, I think it also goes back to he is also 30. You can do this with A.J. Brown. You can do this with Saquon. You can do it with Cam Jurgens and all these people. They're all in their 20s, right? And so I think that's another issue here too.
Sure, but what I think you would have the argument is that they thought they were going to be competitive last year. Dan Quinn and Adam Peters came out and said it. I point to that press conference as a big moment last year where they didn't have to set expectations on themselves, and they did. And then I think you also saw Adam Peters this offseason not concede that they should have been in the Super Bowl, right? He never kind of celebrated them being in the NFC Championship game. He thought he was close. If they want to actually act like what they're putting out there, then they would make a move like this. I'm just throwing that out there. And especially I see what you're saying too with the offseason. We've said it. They're going to have to constantly kind of churn and burn the roster.
There's another one coming, at least one more coming of that. And then I'm hoping it settles down and we start talking about this. Here's our core guys that we pay, and we have to think about how do we manage the cap with the roster that way.
The problem is the whole thing is a house of cards, though. You need everything to keep working out. You need Amos to be a good corner. You need Connerly to be a great tackle. You need Tunsil to work out for at least 2 years, right? You're probably not going to re-sign him. They got Debo. That's great. That's a year, though. I think the churning and burning might just be a part of this team's DNA for maybe 2 to 3 more years. I don't think you fill in all of these needs. They can try, but man, the roster was stripped so bad over the last couple of years. It's going to take a little bit longer. And so my argument to you is basically, I don't think they're going to get to that Eagles point until that contract would be up anyways. So pick your poison, I guess, is what I'm getting.
Yeah, I think some of the conversation about this is a big year for Ben Sinnott. It's a big year for Luke McCaffrey. It's a big year for some of these players because we're looking for roster stability. Who are our guys, right?
Right.
I think Brandon Coleman's a starter long term. They think Cosme is. I agree. I think he's a starter long term. Jaden obviously is. I'm hoping Sinnett's going to be. At wide receiver, I don't know what the long term answer is. Terry or no Terry? Like, I think Terry's the answer now. I think Terry's the answer probably for the next 2 to 3 years. And then I need to reevaluate because he'll be 32, right? Like, again, like we'll have to see. And I think they're going to have to long term plan by finding another number one receiver. Other side of the ball. Look at the defensive line. Name the person that you think is. They don't have a young Jalen Carter right now where you're going, that's the guy, build around. Like, Payne could be here long term. Payne could not be here long term. They're taking a bet on Kinlaw. I don't know whether he's going to be here beyond a couple of seasons. You know, Frankie Louvu looks like one of us. Okay, fine, great. Like, hopefully he'll be here for the long term. Bobby Wagner's playing year to year. Like, hopefully Jordan McGee is his replacement. At safety, we're hoping Quan and maybe Tyler Owens or that. Trey Amos and Sammer still look like the best duo that we have at one position of young people. So, like, our roster is going to continue to change until they find their core guys. And I think that's when you get into a place to start talking about, okay, ownership, are you going to step up and do the creative things to keep our roster together? And I just don't think we're at that point of asking that question of the Harris group. But in this particular case, with this particular player, I'll hear out that, like, you got to make a little bit of an exception. But I'm on, you know, I don't know how much term he wants. I am really, as you could probably tell, siding with Peters being, I love him, but it needs to be carefully crafted how long this actually is with him.
Sure. No, I think the length is the key thing on whatever this contract ends up being. The other side of all of this, too, is, you know, maybe Terry ends up being Mike Evans. And in 3 years, the numbers still look really, really, really good. Like, that's the other side of this as well, that you could also be using to Terry to say, hey, you keep performing, we'll keep paying you as such as well. Like, this organization and he mutually want to stay together, right? They could also just be using that argument as well of going, hey, if we give you a 3-year deal at $30 million a year or 31 or 32, whatever the number might be, and you're still performing, that's not to say we're not going to need you on the other side again as well here with the way the roster is.
You could become our great number 2, number 3, like what happened with Larry Fitzgerald in Arizona for a number of years, where he became the number 2, number 3 target for them. Yeah. And Mike Evans is a good comp for this. Mike Evans is 32. He's making about $20 million a year. That's a really good number for a player who on some days is their number 1 receiver. And on other days, he cedes it over to other people. They have too many good receivers on that team. Actually, now they got 4 good ones. They just used a first-round pick on another one again. So they're doing what we're talking about here, which is they found his replacements, but they've decided he's still valuable to keep playing. I think he's a good comp to say to Terry, we hope you're him. We want you to be him. Like, take the right number now. We'll do right by you on the other side of it. You're not going to be getting Jamar Chase money now or then, right? But you could play a very long time here and have a role here. I agree with that. Very quickly, I saw that Seth Walder, who I like a lot, does a lot of analytical work, did a grade for everybody's off season. He gave the Eagles an A, gave the Giants a B. I agree with that, actually. I thought the Giants defensively did a really, really good job. I think they're actually scary on paper defensively. We'll see how it manifests on the field. I think the problem is, are they going to be able to score enough to win? And they're going to have a muddled quarterback situation throughout the entire year with Russ trying to fight off a first-round pick. And I'm not sure I see much out there other than Neighbors, that would really scare you. So, I think they're going to have that type of season where they're going to have to figure out, can they score enough to win games? But defensively, they look pretty good. He gave us a C, Seth Walder did, for what they did this year. And one of the big takeaways, and one was not surprising, he basically said, I'm not buying the Kinlaw deal. It feels like an overpay, of which I would just argue, they didn't pay him top defensive tackle numbers. Osa Odigizua got something in the neighborhood of 22, 23 million. He got 15, and it's really a 2-year deal. So it's not exactly like that they gave him anything close, and that's a big bet for them. So I'll hear that out. And he has not performed at a level consistently that would warrant having any kind of real feeling like it's going to work out. So I'll hear out Walder on that one. The other one he wrote was Debo, which I thought was really, the way he put it was really interesting. He said, I really liked it at first He goes, but that was assuming they were going to go get another receiver to go along with him and Terry McLaurin, and they didn't. And that's why I don't like it anymore, which he didn't qualify why. I think he likes Debo as a number 3, not a number 2.
Yeah, I mean, on that front, I see it on paper of why you'd question that. But I think, those of us that watch week to week, we saw what Jaden did with the receiver core that they did last year. This is a clear upgrade. And look at how the offense ran last year with basically, as I like to call it, Terry and wide receiver 2 by committee, because that's what it was last year. I get it on paper when you're looking at it like that, but I saw what this offense did with less last year. I'm not as worried as he is. Plus, you also don't know what you're going to get in terms of, you don't know what Jalen Lane's going to look like in this offense. We have no idea what his role is going to be. And also, you got to hope that a guy like McCaffrey hopefully kind of busts out as a number 3 or number 4 or gets a little more playing time. I'm not as worried as he is about this one. And I know how the offense ran last year. They're going to be better,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I thought it was a little strong to go to that level because I didn't feel like a lot of the ones that got poor grades, they were like, they lost these people and didn't even replace them. And I'm like, name the people we lost that you think that we didn't replace. And I'm like, the only one I'll hear out an argument about is John Allen gone, Javon Kinlaw in. Do you think that that is at least an even move? And I'll hear an argument because John's been consistent throughout his career that it didn't happen, but he's younger, has more upside. And I guess we'll just have to see if it's a big bet. We'll see if they're right about that one.
I mean, the other one too is like, I don't think you can understate the fact of acquiring a future Hall of Fame left tackle either. Like that to me is, that should put them into a B regardless of what happened behind that. They upgraded the offensive line in a way that never a lot of team executives didn't even know he was available. So I don't know, like I would bump that up to a B and call it a day there. If you want to argue with the C, fine. I mean, have at it.
All right, let's take a quick break. Bram watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. I watched all of Quarterback Season 2. I don't know if you have. I did. I'm bored this week, so I ended up watching the whole thing. I saw PFT describe it as really good background noise, and I agree with that review of it. I think that's about right. I learned a lot about Joe Burrow. I learned a little bit about Jared Goff, and I don't know why Kirk was on this again. So, I mean, like, why twice? They couldn't get anybody else? Is that what it was? I mean, that's what it feels like. They just couldn't get anybody else to agree to do this.
Oh, that was my argument with Kirk from the beginning. I think they got Goff and Burrow, and they couldn't find a third, and someone just said, does Kirk want to do it again? And he did. I'll hear that argument all day long. I have not seen it. I frankly don't have Netflix, so I'm not probably going to see it for a little bit.
Oh.
But I did see some of the clips on social media, and all the vibes I got was this was a lot of personal stuff. Like I saw the Burrow stuff talking about like he was talking about like Iguana Islands and stuff like that. And then I saw the Kirk haircut clip as well about how he gets his haircut at some run-of-the-mill place. And he mentioned it like 3 times. That made people go, was he just getting a sponsorship deal? Which also wouldn't shock me on that one either. From what I saw, it was a lot of personality stuff, but I also do know social media does not paint the picture of, what these shows are.
Kirk had a couple of product placements that were bothersome to me too. He had the haircut place, and he had a specific drive-through that he goes through in Atlanta after games, and it felt very product placement to me. Okay, fine. Maybe that was part of the deal to get Kirk to do it again, was like, you got to let me do these things. If you're not going to pay me to do it, or maybe they did pay him to do it, who knows, whatever. And he's very good on this, and it does get interesting. You get to hear his perspective on the benching, right? So that part is pretty good, and it's very Senator Cousins. Like, he says all the right things, does all the right things. You get a lot of perspective of what went wrong for him, and it was an injury in a specific game earlier that was not made a big, it's the NFL, not made a big deal of, but you find out a little bit more and more and more about that. The overarching feeling about him after watching it all was he regrets leaving Minnesota. And not just because of the benching, and not just because he didn't know what he didn't know. You could feel it and hear it in his voice early that he, and especially his wife, didn't want to leave. And by the end of the series, and he gets benched, and she's prominently in this, and she's like in tears when he gets benched, and you could just feel what was coming out of her, which was, I wish we never left. So, and he even says in the series, had I known they were going to do this, I would have just stayed in Minnesota. And either way, I would have had, a first round pick behind me, but I would have just stayed there.
I did see that quote, and it told me everything that I need to know, that they probably didn't really want to leave, but that contract was looking too good, and they figured clear, open way. And also, it takes two to tango. I don't think Minnesota was willing to pay, that number, obviously. And they were already looking, hey, we've got one of these top picks. We're probably going to draft somebody and sign you. He probably, steered them that direction. But I just don't think they saw it, one, coming at all, and then two, actually having it happen that year, right? Like, I think the funny thing with Kirk was he actually just wasn't that good last year, too. Like, he warranted being benched a little bit. I don't think they saw that coming.
Yes, he went through what was going on with him physically throughout the year. And so it gives you a lot more context about what was happening with him and why things went so wrong. There was a game against the Saints where he took a hit and he hurt his elbow and his shoulder in it, and it never seemingly really recovered. And he talked about how, it got to the point where he's like, I'm being indecisive because I'd see a window and I'd second guess whether I could get it there on time, or I would try to force one and it would get picked. And it's like, it really emphasized, if you are off by a millisecond, you fail in this game. And that's what ended. And when you're physically compromised, which is what he was talking about, not only just with his ankle, but with his arm and shoulder, that it all went south on them. And you could hear in his voice, that he understood why he was benched. You could hear that. And then in the end, it kind of keeps going back to, I kind of wish I never left Minnesota. You kind of hear that. Goff was, I don't know. I have a different level of respect for preparation for him. I think you get not unlike when I watched the first one with Cousins and I went, I think this guy, you're going to think about him a little bit differently now. Goff's preparation is highlighted here. His relationship, actually, this is, I think, good for teams like Commanders, the Eagles, everybody who's Detroit's a contender. The relationship he had with Ben Johnson is emphasized over and over and over. And the fact that he's not going to be there is going to be a big deal, obviously. Goff and his wife are prominently throughout this. And, he's boring, but I do respect the preparation that goes into it with him.
Yeah, with Goff, the same thing. What I saw on social media was, I was surprised about how much the Rams were mentioned a little bit, that they asked him about the trade with Sean McVay. They asked him
about it, and he talked about it. But unlike Kirk, and this is now a few years down the road, not only is he totally settled into this, he, I think, likes that it happened. I think this is a happy ending for him. You can hear it in his voice. This was a happy ending for him.
Okay, fair enough. Because what I saw on social media too was I wish Sean McVay was straight up with me or something. And I was like, dude, that deal happened in secret. I don't.
They asked him about it. McVay has actually addressed it too and said, I wish I dealt with that differently.
Yeah, right.
But there's no, I don't think there's any, I think I don't think he knew this in the beginning, but you could tell by watching this, he loves being the Detroit Lions quarterback. Loves it.
Yeah. And that's not a surprise. That's everything we heard. That's everything we heard leading into, the playoffs last year with him. Yeah, for sure.
Burrow was the most interesting one. One, because he's not really out there, for someone who tries to be a fashionista and is maybe the best quarterback in the NFL right now and had a season last year that was outrageous. If they had made the playoffs, it'd be almost impossible not to give him the MVP off the season that he had. He's actually very private. And so, one, I was a little surprised he did this. And two, he was probably the most interesting character. They go through why he likes clothes so much. His parents are prominently displayed in this, and they're two of the most rational, down-to-earth, normal people. He's sitting there bleaching his hair and wearing all these crazy fashion clothes, and they're not like that at all. They're just very down-to-earth. The other thing you learn about him very quickly is he is cocky as hell, which shouldn't come off as a surprise, but he's also very, very close with his teammates. That became very abundantly clear that he's got a really, really strong relationship with his teammates. And not that Kirk doesn't, and maybe it's unfair to do this to him because he was with a new team, but you don't feel that. Everything around Kirk is they show is with his family or with his brother, and he's a great professional. But everything you see outside with Burrow, he's with his teammates. Like he's constantly with them. Goff, they showed it was like a lot just with his wife. I think he's very private. And then other times where he's very close with like Amon-Ra. So I think you see some of that. Like in watching this too, it's like, no kidding, Burrow's numbers are outrageous. One, he's playing with really great receivers, but two, he's actually genuinely really close with all of them.
I would use the argument like Kirk with Minnesota last time he was with his teammates quite a bit.
Yeah,
like there was some, hey, remember they were doing chains on planes with Kirk. So I will say like you got to build into that a little bit. Burrow's been there for what now, 5 years. So I don't know. There's a difference there for that.
I agree. Anyway, I agree with the initial sentiment. It was good. It's worth watching. Got the juices flowing for me to see football again and all that stuff. But like, it's background noise. You're not going to learn a lot. Yeah.
Let me ask you this though, because you had the Bengals and the Commanders beat them on Monday night. You had the Lions playoff game, and then you had to beat the Falcons. Like, were the Commanders anything more than the team that beat these teams, or was it just kind of like not a focus at all?
They nameplated Jaden 3 times in it. So clearly they would like him to be in quarterback 3. Okay. That was pretty obvious. And the last game, I mean, like watching the highlights from the Lions game is amazing. And they showed they didn't show extended highlights of the other 2. They showed extended highlights of this, obviously, because it was the only one of the 3 where they had playoff game. And you get to see Jared Goff's wife burst in tears and cry. And you get to see so that was fun. You get to see the locker room totally get, knocked out. But like, they don't make a bigger deal of the Commanders. It just happens that they're big parts of all 3 of those seasons. And I think Burrow's line about it was, he's like, I played great. He goes, that was just his coming out party. So
got it.
What are you gonna do? Yeah,
fair enough. I guess they're gonna have to talk to Jane Daniels' mom about season 3. It's probably what that has to be.
It was pretty clear that they were pitching. We really want you to be in quarterback season 3. All right, be right back. Bram watch the show. He's at 6:30. The Sports Capital. All right. Welcome back. Final segment before I go on my last little vacation before training camp. I didn't realize this was happening because all the big deal was made of the Commanders' new alternate uniforms, which looks like the Redskins from the 1980s. The Saints also came out with an alternate white helmet. You're going to see that. There are like 5 or 6 other teams that are going to get alternates that are coming out over the next couple of weeks, including the Chargers, the Seahawks, which I think is going to go back to the 80s too. I think it'll be pretty cool when they go back to that kind of old original look that they had. Tampa Bay is going to have one. I'll be interested to see if that leans into creamsicles or if that's something else. I don't know. We'll see. Those are coming out. And then at a later date, there's going to be what they're calling rivalry uniforms that are coming out for the NFC West.
Yep.
I think the
NFC
AFC
West.
East. Yeah, something like that.
I thought it was NFC West and NFC North. I thought those were the first 2. I thought.
I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
Hold on. Let's see. AFC East, NFC West. Those are the 2 that it's going to be. And so they're going to have, I think, for their matchups against one another, they're going to have probably old schooly looking uniforms, to which I would say, yes, more of that, please.
I don't know I think you might be assuming wrong here. You got to remember who's in control of this stuff now. It is Nike. And so they announced this at the draft. This is when this first got kind of thrown out there and people don't really know what it's going to be. I'll just throw something out there for you. The big 3 that Nike is a part of right now are the NFL, the MLB, and the NBA. Look what they do with the NBA. NBA gets a new uniform every year. Every team has some kind of new uniform every single year, almost like soccer. You kick over what the MLB has now done for the last 3 or 4 years. They now have a City Connect that's completely different than what each team does. I think this is actually the NFL foraying into the Nike mantra of we're going to do something crazy. I think this is going to happen where they have a uniform they wear once a year that's going to be crazy because Nike has this portfolio now of changing things up every year to print some money. I think we're going to get to a point, and I think it's an important rule distinction. You can not only have 2 helmets now, you can have like 3 or 4 helmets if you really want them. I think we're about to like go off the deep end here with some NFL uniform stuff.
Everybody's gone Oregon. Amazing.
Correct. Well,
who knew? They were made fun of when they started doing this early, where they changed their uniform every week and changed their helmet every week and had a whole new set. And now every team has gone in this direction. The NBA has totally leaned into it, where they do crazy crap on their jerseys now.
Well, where's Nike located and what school do they sponsor? Right. Connect the dot right there. I'm actually surprised the NFL hasn't done this yet. To me, the NFL is really funny. They don't do anything innovative. All the teams are very cookie cutter. Like all the training camp hats look the same. All the season hats look the same. All the hoodies look the exact same. I'm actually surprised we hadn't gotten here yet. I think we're about to, where we get some kind of crazy stuff printed out.
Yeah, I think they're still, and I agree with this, protect the brand. Like, it doesn't take many mistakes to screw up the brand. So I am for, there needs to be some controls. Like it can't be do anything you want. Like it can't be.
Yeah, but the argument that I'll make with you is what I always make is these are alternate uniforms, not altering the brand, right? The Red Sox are on their second City Connect since these things have launched. That B hasn't gone away. That Red Sox look hasn't gone away. It's just an alternate look. So I think that's what's happening here. And I'm going to guess here, they're going to the owners and going, do you know how much money these are going to print? Do you know how many people are going to buy all of these? And then, we start rotating them out like the City Connect stuff. That's what I think is happening here. I just think the NFL is getting with the times of having a little bit more boldness happen on the football field.
Unscientific poll, this is not a surprise. The Commanders' alternate look has been very popular, so much so that in my house, all three of the people asked for one. So that's a rarity. Like as we get set for the season, because they'll go to a couple games, they're going to want something to wear. But all of them, like not even in the same room, at some point said, I want one of those new alternate ones. And Archer has already landed on, I get the Jaden one. So,
I mean, for my group chat, it was, okay, Jaden's first. Who's your next one? Like that's how the conversation went in my group chat. And there was some debate on who the second one would be.
My wife asked for Terry. She loves Terry. And I go, okay, I just want to, now I need to clue you in on what's going on. Just so you know.
For me, it's probably going to be one of the linebackers. It's either going to be Luvu or Wagner, because I think Wagner in that old school look just feels right. Like that one just feels cool to have. We'll see. I said this on my show. It's going to be the highest selling jersey in the NFL next season, guaranteed, especially because they're wearing them on Christmas. How many people are going to wake up on Christmas Day, get that jersey, and then go to the game out at Northwest Stadium? Like that's a matchup made in heaven. So I think it's going to be the highest selling jersey of the season next year. I'm
going Jaden 1. I think if it were me, I'd want Sandra still 2. That's actually the one I think I would want.
See, I like that, but I don't think 0 looks right in the old school look. It's just not. It's just not a thing that to me fits. I love Mikey. Don't get me wrong, but I'm like, if you want, I think you have to go with feel here. Like that'd be good, or like an offensive lineman in that old school look would look really good. Like a Connerly or a Tunsil, I think would look really good in that jersey too.
Tunsil would look good. Yeah. Cosme. I think Cosme feels old school too.
Right.
All right, everybody. Have a great week. I will talk to you on the 21st as we get set for training camp. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.